Welcome back to Be Bold, and now we're on to the Diaspora segment. And in here, I have a special guest, Lydia Elim Andrews, who was born in Canada and then moved back to Ghana to work here just recently. So I'm really excited to hear what she has to say. Lydia, welcome.
Thank you.
So tell me about you, your whole story.
My parents came from Ghana to Canada to do their university, and then I was born there, raised there. I had never visited Ghana growing up, never.
Wow.
So I had the opportunity to go somewhere for the summer. That was in 2008. And because of a friend who is Ghanaian, I was able to come here. And then I came back again and came back again.
So prior to that, did you have any sort of knowledge about Ghana? Did you know anything about Ghana, like through your parents or?
Well, growing up, we ate the food. They didn't really speak our language, so I don't speak any Ghanaian language, unfortunately. We have some Ghanaian friends. There's a Ghanaian community, but I didn't interact with them so much growing up, as much as I could have.
Wow. So then coming to Ghana, when you landed and off the plane, what was your first impression?
It's hot.
Okay.
It was very hot. And because of the plane ride and coming from Canada, I was dressed for the cold.
So you didn't know that it was going to be hot at all?
Well, of course I knew, but
Okay.
I wasn't thinking. So, of course, the first
You
thing
didn't
when I
understand
got...
what? Oh.
No, not at all.
Okay.
So that was the first thing. Getting used to the heat was an issue. And then I had an issue with indoors being so cold. They put the AC on very cold. So people would always tell me, but you're from Canada, it's cold there, how can you be cold? But it's not the same. It's not the same as being outside in winter. As long as I come indoors and I'm comfortable, then I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then what about other things? Like culturally, was that easy for you to adjust? You know, having been, with the Canadian culture for so long, how was that for you?
Well, like I said, we did have Ghanaian friends, but most of us, we're all kids that either came to Canada really young, or we were born there. So the majority of us grew up with the Canadian culture. Some were fortunate to have, more of the Ghanaian influence in their house, but I think I was one of the least fortunate ones.
Yeah.
So coming here was quite a shock for me. As much as they tried to prepare me for it, I don't think you can really talk about the experience.
Yeah.
It wouldn't
So tell me
suffice.
some stories. Give me some examples. Like, what are some of the things that you faced?
Water issues, electricity issues. I don't think anyone told me those things before coming. So some of the basic day-to-day experiences that I should have been prepared for, I wasn't. So generally, don't use your left. I know that one, but it's difficult. Some people actually get upset if I use my left accidentally.
Yeah.
So that is, some
Something
small
that you
things
weren't
maybe.
used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some other small things that probably I didn't know, and they would expect me to know, knowing that, both my parents raised me.
Yeah. So what, like, in terms of, what about the language barrier? You said before that you don't really speak any sort of local languages. So how do you then, do people expect you to speak it?
They do. They do, until I explain that I'm not from here, but then they ask, oh, but what about your parents? And then they say, oh, so you should speak some language, at least your own language. But I don't. So, they kind of get upset with me, but I explain that as a child, I don't choose which language I speak.
Yeah.
And even now, it's difficult to learn the language. As much as they say it's very easy to, it's not. It's not for me anyway.
Yeah. So why did you decide to come back to Ghana? I mean, your parents, you were telling me, are now, they studied and they're there. They haven't moved back or anything. So how then did you even feel the urge to sort of come back and, get to know your culture a bit more?
I guess with time, I was getting more curious. So I decided to come for the 4 months to do an internship. And after those 4 months, I felt that I was just getting used to it and it was time to leave. So I decided, I should come back, stay for a year to see what it's really like. And it was two complete different experiences. The first time I was very comfortable. The second time, I think I was living more like maybe I wouldn't say your average Ghanaians, but I was living more
Not as you were before.
As I was before.
Different companies.
Different companies, different lifestyle.
Okay.
You know, so those things really made a big difference for me.
Okay. And how has that changed over time?
I think the experience I had last year, because it was more frustrating and more stressful, I think I learned a lot more from it. All the challenges that I experienced, dealing with people, we didn't understand each other because we had different mindsets. Dealing with bureaucracy, dealing with offices, and dealing with...
Let's talk about that. You're talking about different mindsets and office. I mean, you worked in Canada, I'm sure, and then now coming here, and it's different, you know, like the way people interact with you, the way... Tell me about some of those differences that you experienced.
Something simple, just in the office, getting things done. You don't tell someone to do something and then expect them to do it. You really have to chase them and really have to follow up with them. Otherwise, you can assume that they won't do it, which is unfortunate. Even if, you know, you're working with another company on something, you still have to chase them, even if you're their client.
Now, when we're looking at things like time, you know, we have a huge issue, time management and even being efficient and coming on time to things. Do you find that you're changing as a person the way you are because you know how everybody will be late? Or do you still stick to your way of being on time like a Canadian would, for instance?
I think when it comes to business and work, I'm more or less on time, but I definitely have been slipping more and more. I think, you know, maybe I've become too accustomed.
Yeah.
So before, I'd be very stressed if someone was late, or if I'm late, I would make a big deal about it. And I'd be very worried of being very unprofessional. But I think that's one area that I myself, I'm disappointed with myself when I'm late.
Yeah. So you're sort of falling into the ways that we do things.
I think, you know, I've been here for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
So you have to learn to adapt in some way. But there are some things that I think you can learn from both sides. So staying here, I've learned how to adapt to the culture here. But I feel like maybe I've brought some things with me as well that I can use to help to improve some things.
Tell me a bit about ISIC, because you are the president of ISIC. And so tell me a bit more about that and the opportunities available here in Ghana for people.
Okay, well, I first joined ISIC in Canada. That's how I came for my internship for the 4 months.
Okay.
And then I came back to work on the national board of ISIC, on the national team.
Okay.
So through those opportunities, you're able to travel, go for different conferences, and exchange opportunities. Like I mentioned, I came for the first time.
Okay.
So there are 5 campuses in Ghana. So we have Legon, we have University of Cape Coast, Central University, Methodist University, and then Tech in Kumasi. So joining any of those branches, they can give you more information as to the different places you can go to. There are so many opportunities available through ISIC because we're in over 100 countries. So you can go to any of those countries.
Yeah.
Easily.
So you joined the one in Canada and were able to come down here. So all these locations you've mentioned is for people if they want to, let's say, go and get those opportunities abroad as well before they come back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who have left Ghana and come back, or who have left and are looking for opportunities to come back. Yes. Yeah. So they're talking, you know, having discussions with them, seeing as I grew up there and I'm here now, they're wondering the same things that you're asking me.
Yeah.
How was I able to cope? Why am I still here?
Yeah. And so, I mean, you represent a lot of Ghanaians out there who, you know, either were born there or left at a very, very young age. Haven't been here for 2 years now. What sort of message can you give them in terms of the opportunities available here, in terms of what they will experience when they come down here?
Well, there are a lot of opportunities because it's a country that's continuously growing. I always say that in Canada, I think the country more or less is almost established. There are less opportunities to start something new. Most people are comfortable working for an already established company. Whereas in Ghana, you see a lot of people starting something, trying to make their mark, trying to change the country, trying to improve the way things are already done. So people can come and do the same thing. You just have to get used to some of the, you know,
ups and downs.
Yeah, the work habits and the way people do business is a little bit different.
Yeah. So what's in plans for Lydia's future from here?
Well, having grown up in Canada, I would never have thought I'd be here now, even after 2 years, and still, looking forward to staying longer. So I definitely see myself staying here a bit longer. As to, how many years, I can't say
For sure.
for sure just yet. But I'll definitely stay longer. There are so many opportunities.
Yeah.
It would kind of be silly to go back and be stuck and not have any opportunities available to me.
Where? Here?
In
Canada,
Canada,
you
yes.
mean? So you feel that if you went back, you wouldn't have any opportunities over there and you have them here? Or?
I think there are more here.
Okay.
So, like I said, if I was there, I'd probably be doing something that maybe I wouldn't enjoy, maybe having a government job. But then here, there are more opportunities, so, you have more of a chance of doing something you like and probably developing it to be something big.
Now, I might be going in a forbidden area, but what about relationships and finding a family and stuff? Is that something that you look to find here in Ghana or more in Canada?
I used to joke and say that, the only reason I would ever stay in Ghana longer is if I got married and started a family and, we decided to stay here.
Yeah.
But the issues with relationships and all that is, similar to dealing with people every day, is the mindset. So I really have to, because I know how I am and I'm kind of strong-minded. So I have to deal with someone that can deal with me as I am. And, growing up in Canada, I have that mindset. It's different. So I don't want to have any kind of tension. So I need someone that we can understand each other.
So I guess a bit more international exposure if it was somebody that understands the different mindsets.
That's one way to put it. Yeah, that's one way to put it. So maybe someone that has had some experience outside or just maybe has interacted with a lot of foreigners so they can understand me. So that when we're discussing issues, relationship isn't all lovely and wonderful as we would love them to be. So, when it comes down to the important matters, I really would need someone that can think.
Yeah. And I'm sure many people have asked you this, then what do you consider yourself to be, a Ghanaian or a Canadian?
I will say I'm a Canadian-born Ghanaian.
Okay, meaning?
Yes. I was born in Canada, but of course my parents are Ghanaian. All my family my ancestry is Ghanaian. So I was born in Canada and I have Ghanaian blood running through me.
So you're Ghanaian. That's a good answer. I think that's a really way to sort of go around, beat around the bush and get there. Yeah, all right. Well, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your experiences here on The Be Bold Show. And that's it. You've heard it from Lydia, Elim, Andrews on The Be Bold Show. Let's take a break. We'll be back in a moment.